Hi, I'm Ashot. I call this episode Everything is Extremely Good. Once I was sitting on the endlessly long queue of my doctor. I sat for a long time, and I wasn't alone. Patients had stuck their necks into the sand. No, just kidding. Of course, in their smartphones. And there they were studying the depth of the universe. Again, kidding. Of course, they were watching videos on how to awesomely make a beef steak or how a monkey snatched a smartphone right out of the tourist's hands. But there were other people too. So not far from me sat an old man. Quite handsome, I must say. His completely gray beard seemed to hint that the old man wasn't simple. Next to him sat a girl of about 6 or 7, probably his granddaughter. And this very granddaughter was telling her grandfather, as I understood, about her school affairs. She talked about how terrible it was to wake up that early in the morning, how difficult it was to sit through the lesson quietly, how much homework they have given, how her desk neighbor was annoying her. But wherever the girl sat, the grandfather always answered the same strange thing. He said, everything is extremely good, everything is unfolding as it should. At some point, he started to annoy me a little bit with this. What's always good? The girl is complaining and he says everything is unfolding as it should. And I, looking at how many patients were still in front of me, realizing I had time, decided to tickle the old man's nerves a little bit and my own too. Very diplomatically apologizing for overhearing their conversation, I said that I believe there's enough evil and negativity in life so that when the young generation turns to us, we shouldn't brush them off with some philosophical, arrogant phrases, right? Let's give it a shot. The old man seemed to be waiting for this. He calmly stood up, took his granddaughter by the hand, and moved closer to me. And then, constantly glancing at me and then at her, he told the following story. Once upon a time, in a kingdom, there was a king, and he had his very consultant friend, the Prime Minister. The king always sent the Prime Minister to travel to different countries to gain wisdom. And one time, the Prime Minister stayed for a long time in one country with a guru and returned a completely different person who had learned some truth. And this truth he embodied with himself and in the whole world around him. And whatever happened around him and whoever told him anything, he always reacted with one simple phrase. Everything is extremely good, everything is unfolding as it should. And one day in this kingdom, the cook had a tragedy. He caught his beloved wife with another cook in the morning. And before killing both, he came to the wise man, to which the Prime Minister said, everything is extremely good, everything is unfolding as it should. The cook emotionally slammed the door and left. On the same day, in the same kingdom, the general didn't get a promotion up the career ladder. And he decided to leave the kingdom. And he was weighing the pros and cons and how the king would react to this, and also decided to consult with the Prime Minister. To which the Prime Minister said, everything is extremely good, everything is unfolding as it should. The general simply went crazy, went out, walking down the corridor, met the cook, who was also sad. The men exchanged their sorrows and their thoughts about the Prime Minister. And they were doing this so emotionally and so loud that they didn't notice that they were passing by the royal barber shop at that time, where they were just shaving the king's neck. And some bad moment, the razor slipped out of the barber's hand and blood appeared on the king's neck. The cook, together with the general, ran in, helped stop the blood, gave him peroxide, wrapped a bandage around him, and everything was fine. And on the go, they came up with a mean plan, how to take revenge on the Prime Minister. They quickly ran to him and told him the story that just happened to the king. The Prime Minister said, "Everything is extremely good. Everything is unfolding as it should." This was exactly what they needed. They immediately returned to the king and said, "Your Majesty, you won't believe it. You nearly died. We barely stopped your blood, wrapped your neck, and what did your right hand, the Prime Minister, say to this? He said, 'Everything is extremely good. Everything is unfolding as it should.'" The king could not believe it. He called for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister appeared before him. And then the king, looking him in the eyes, said, "You are my everything. You have always been a consultor by my side. What do you say to what happened to me?" The Prime Minister thought, looked at the cook, looked at the general, and said, "Everything is extremely good. Everything is unfolding as it should." The king immediately ordered to throw him in the prison. And it actually was Wednesday. And on Wednesdays, the king always rode horses with the Prime Minister in his favorite forest. Well, the Prime Minister was in prison, so the king rode alone. And so was king riding through the forest. And this was a forest where there were Aborigines. And they just happened to have a sacrifice holiday that day. And their chief said, "Guys, we urgently need a clean person whom we will sacrifice." They grabbed the king, brought him to the chief. The chief looked at his neck, at his bandage. He took it off, and said, "Guys, this won't do. We need a clean person. Throw this one back to the forest and find me a good one." The Aborigines did so. The king couldn't believe his luck. He returned safe to the kingdom and immediately ordered to call the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister appeared before the king. And then the king said, "Prime Minister, you were right. If it wasn't the cut on my neck, they would be roasting me on a fire right now. Thank you." The Prime Minister looked at him and said, "Your Majesty, that's not all. If you hadn't sent me to prison, I would have been riding with you and my neck is fine. So now they would be roasting me on a fire. So thank you." Therefore, if you find yourself in a situation in life where everything seems very bad, remember this story. Everything is wonderful. Everything is very often good. Everything is very often great. It all depends on what we focus on. And even in the most disgusting events, later with time, very often positive events are embedded. Everything is extremely good. Everything is unfolding as it should.